Afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Metro Inner Development Assessment panel meeting for this afternoon. I declare the meeting open at 1:04 and acknowledge that we're hosting this meeting on the traditional land of the Wadjuk people of the Noongar Nation. We acknowledge the Aboriginal people as the traditional custodians of Western Australia, pay respect to elders past and present, and the ongoing connection between people, land, waters and community. The meeting will be run in accordance with the DAP Standing Orders and DAP Regulations 2011. The meeting is being recorded and live streamed on the DAP website. Panel members may refer to technical devices throughout the meeting to assist them in considering the information before them. My name is Clayton Hyam. I'm the presiding member for today's meeting, and with me I have Francesca Lafanti, the deputy presiding member, Andrew Howe, the third specialist member, and online we have Councillor Michelle Sutherland and Councillor Carla Liacono from the City of Bayswater. There are no apologies, and minutes from previous meetings are available on the DAP website. Declaration of due consideration. Could members please indicate that they are familiar with the material contained within Part B of the agenda and Part B related information? A show of hands, and from Councillor Sutherland, a yes please, or a no?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you. Disclosures of interest. Are there any disclosures of interest? Councillors, did this matter go to a council meeting?
No, it did not.
Okay. Are there any disclosures of interest?
Not for me.
Thank you. Good. That's none. Okay, we will move to the item itself, which is lots 130 to 131 Guildford Road, Bayswater, proposed service station, car wash and drive-through coffee premises. We have a number of presenters this afternoon, and I will just remind you that we have read your presentation material, and if you could stick to the 3 minutes, I'll let you know when the 3 minutes is up, and panel members may want to ask you some questions. So we'll start off with Martin Cunningham online, I think.
Hello, just checking my audio is coming through.
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Lovely. Well, thank you for the opportunity to address the panel. Myself and my family have been local residents for more than 20 years. We oppose the proposed development for a number of reasons. Firstly, the negative traffic impact of the proposal by creating additional hazards on Guildford Road with right-hand turning vehicles at the entrance and exit of the vehicles on an already dangerous section of road on the crest of a hill, with an existing offset intersection already creating a number of traffic incidents, and consider that it's completely unsuitable and creates additional danger to vehicles, pedestrians, cyclists attempting to cross at the nearby median strip. As a pedestrian and a bicycle user, this is adjacent to the only crossing point in this stretch of Guildford Road, as identified in the long-term cycle network plan, and this proposal would impact, on this ability. I also understand there's currently consideration underway to address the need for the addition of a controlled pedestrian crossing to enable safer crossings on Guildford Road, and this is potentially one location for that crossing, which would be also impacted by the proposal. Secondly, the additional noise, light and odour that will be created by the 24-hour operations will have significant impact on the surrounding residents, which I feel has not been adequately addressed in the submission. Our residence on Gordon Street has a visual connection to the location, and noise and dust from Guildford Road already travels down onto our residence, being lower than the road level. This additional noise and light pollution has the potential for unmitigated impact on our amenity, particularly due to the 24-hour nature of the proposed operations, the potential impact of the odour from petrol filling, and the health impact of the presence and exposure to benzene and other high VOC chemicals we consider as detrimental to the health and amenity of surrounding residents. And lastly, the development is at odds with the spirit and character of the Maylands and Bayswater community, has the potential of the impact on the current enjoyment of local amenities, such as the Garden Cafe adjacent to the site, which operates on a human level, keeping with the character of the neighbourhood. This proposal is simply not compatible with the current neighbourhood and its amenity. I also understand that this site has been identified for future rezoning in the draft local planning scheme for the City of Bayswater, and this proposal would impact on that future potential. I recommend to the DAP to refuse this submission on the grounds stated above, and also the report from the Accountable Authority and the incompatibility with Clause 68, Schedule 2, the deemed provisions of the planning and local planning schemes, Regulation 2015, and the provisions of the City of Bayswater Town Planning Scheme number 24.
Thank you, Martin. Well done. 3 minutes. Questions of Martin Cunningham from panel members? No. Okay, thank you very much. We'll move on.
Lovely, thank you.
Move on.
I have to just request my leave of the panel. I have another commitment to attend.
That's all right. Thank you, Martin.
Thank you very much.
Jay Hardison.
Good afternoon, all. Jay Hardison. I'm a local resident of Kenilworth Street. I've been there for 25 plus years. Thank you very much for the opportunity to address the DAP on this proposal. For background, I helped coordinate the preparation of the traffic engineering peer review of the transport impact assessment that was prepared. I'm presuming you all have a copy of that document that was done by Irby. And that was put together by group funding within the community to fund that, which shows sort of the level of support for opposing this. I'm not going to repeat the issues that were raised in the review. I'm just going to suffice to say that the review has highlighted 5 individual problems with the proposal that are not minor technical matters. And these 5 problems themselves should be reason to reject the transport impact assessment, which would be a major blow on the submission. But I guess when I look at these 5 problems against all the other points that are raised in the responsible authority report and the stuff, the submissions that have come up from other community members, I guess one thing becomes very clear to me. The application really falls well short of what would be expected. I accept that the site presents challenges and the expectations for a service station have changed significantly in the 20-odd years since the site was last used for that purpose. It's accepted that when the proponent attempts to develop a site to the extent that's proposed in this application, these challenges will increase significantly. And I appreciate that the proponent has probably done the best they can. But the range and extent of issues, shortcomings, and problems that have been highlighted in the RAR and the community submissions is, quite frankly, almost breathtaking. There seems to be hardly any measure by which a proposal meets the standards that one would expect of a significant development on a major road and a built-up urban environment. I appreciate, truly, because I follow it quite closely from my old days in working in this area, that there are many situations where DAP members are faced with unhappy locals objecting to developments in the neighborhood, and that unpopular decisions often need to be made, and I do accept that. However, I also understand that when these unpopular decisions are reached, they are because the application meets some accepted standards and can objectively be viewed as an appropriate development. And to that end, I think this application falls well short of accepted standards simply by the range of issues that have been raised by both the city and by the community. And it really is trouble to see it being considered as an appropriate development. And I have full confidence that the DAP members will also see these same shortcomings and will, I'm hoping, will rule against the proposal. So I'd like to finish my thing with saying that I am against it, and I'm hoping that that'll be the way of decisions today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there questions of the presenter? Councillors?
No, not for me.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Jay. We'll move to Andrew Parry.
Thank you. I'll jump right in. My name's Andy Parry, and I'm here to provide a view from the local community who will be, in my view, adversely impacted by this proposed development. I'm one of the 109 people who submitted against this proposal, and you'll note there were 0 in favour of it. In my 15 years on Kenilworth Street, this area has changed significantly. There's been a lot of urban infill, change of use, and many dozens of new dwellings have been added in that 15-year period, including mine. Population density has increased, and there is a busy cafe on the corner of Kenilworth and Guildford, as mentioned, and families with young children make up much of the demographic. And yet, I don't feel that the proposal really addresses the negative impacts that may occur from this proposed development. In attachment 1 of the planning report, it states that the development comprises a 4 Bowser 8 fueling point service station, but the TIA attachment 3 states that it's a 3 Bowser with 6 fueling points. So there is a little lack of clarity there, I feel. And it goes on to claim that as it is less than 7 fueling points, the development has only moderate impact based on accepted standards. So even assuming that the applicant seeks to build 6 and not 8 fueling points, the proposed development would still expect up to 100 vehicles in a peak hour period, which is a massive increase in local traffic. Looking at the traffic flow diagrams 3 and 4, traffic flows for both inbound and outbound traffic is actually routed down Kenilworth Street. Diagram 3 does not show the outbound flows egressing onto Kenilworth Street. It just shows a left turn onto Kenilworth and then out through the aforementioned intersection, which is extremely dangerous. Diagram 4 shows traffic only exiting to Kenilworth, and there would be no exit onto Guildford Road should the main roads department proceed with that change to the road layout, which is a moot point at this point. It's likely, therefore, in my opinion, that traffic volumes on Kenilworth Street will greatly increase, resulting in increased noise, vehicle traffic, air pollution, and safety risks. The street is already difficult to traverse as is due to parked cars and some obscured vision on the hilltop. And on weekends with the cafe and other visitors, the street would become much busier and much more dangerous, given the potential 100 additional vehicles using the station in peak hour, many of which will go up and down Kenilworth Street. Note also that 100 vehicles is not one journey, that's potentially 2 journeys, ingress and egress. Furthermore, diagram 3 illustrates an unrealistic and frankly dangerous set of traffic flows on the Kenilworth, Derby and Guildford Road intersection, as mentioned by Mr. Cunningham, which is a dangerous intersection which is notorious for near misses. And to be honest, as a resident, I avoid it like the plague.
Andrew, that's 3 minutes.
My apologies, I got 2 sentences and I'm done.
Done.
In summary, it is my view that and that of the local community that the proposed development will have a significant adverse impact on the safety, character and amenity of the area. And I respectfully request that you take these factors into account. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Are there questions of Andrew?
No, not for me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. All right, we'll move to Jessica Albrow.
Good afternoon, presiding member and panel members. My name's Jessica Albrow and I live at 50A Grosvenor Road in Bayswater, one of the properties that's been specifically identified as being impacted by this development. So my property directly adjoins this development, our home backs straight onto it and our bedrooms face it. It's essentially our backyard and I'm here to ask you to refuse the application. And for that, there are 3 main reasons for that. Firstly, the proximity. This development is less than 20 metres from our home. Our house sits on land that's significantly higher than the development site. The proposal is relying on a 1.8 metre fence to reduce noise and protect residents, but that simply will not work to provide any protection to our property. It assumes that the ground is flat, but given that our property sits higher, we'll be looking directly over that fence and into the development. From our bedrooms, upstairs and downstairs, we'll see and hear everything. So the noise, light and visual impacts are not reduced, they'll be directly experienced by us. There's no real separation here and no meaningful buffering. So secondly, the 24-hour nature of this development right next to family homes, we already experience significant noise from Guildford Road, which is about 60 metres away from our home. And at night, that noise carries significantly further and it's much harder to block out. So this brings that activity even closer to our family home, the cars, the engines, the lights and the people. It's directly outside our bedroom windows. This will affect sleep, stress and our daily life and our family life and that of my child. When this land was previously used as a petrol station, it was not a 24-hour operation and their homes were not as close to this site as they are now. It's a very different proposal in a very different residential setting. And thirdly, the health impacts. The Department of Health recommends a 200-metre separation between service stations and homes, and this development sits within 20 metres of ours. That means ongoing exposure to fuel emissions and pollutants, right where families live and sleep. When you put it all together, it's clear this is too close to family homes. It operates 24 hours a day. It brings noise, light and traffic and emissions directly into people's living spaces. These impacts cannot be properly mitigated and I urge you to refuse this application. This is a residential area and families deserve to live peacefully in their homes. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Jessica. Other questions of Jessica? Councillors?
No, none for me.
Good, thank you. Okay, thanks, Jessica. Sandra Kift.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the opportunity for me to speak. My name is Sandra Kift. I'm a resident with planning background which lives in 11 Kenilworth Street. Proposed high-impact fuel station by a South Australian developer gives me the opportunity to highlight long-standing structural problems that endanger residents in our area. The Meltham Station Precinct Structure Plan, decided in 2018, was created to intensify housing and mixed-use development around Meltham Station. Its purpose was to shift the area toward a higher density, transit-oriented precinct. This will encourage mixed-use buildings and allows high-density residential and apartment-scale developments. However, the structure plan did not address movement or safe access, not around the station, not towards the river, and not toward key community destinations. Since then, Main Roads upgraded the Hotham Bridge without addressing safer pedestrian movement around the station or improving access for people walking or cycling. The Guildford Road corridor became part of the City of Bayswater local planning strategy when it was formally endorsed by the Western Australian Planning Commission in January 2025. It aims to create a strategic redevelopment corridor that supports mixed-use, medium-density residential development and walkable, transit-supportive environments. But the corridor has no integrated movement plan. The city has not established a safe movement strategy, no pedestrian crossing plan for Guildford Road or cycling network for our neighborhood was developed. As a result, Meltham was excluded from the City of Bayswater bike plan in 2023. The city has had and has no movement framework for this Meltham Station neighborhood, especially towards the river. Main Roads controls Guildford Road. They have not delivered an assessment or upgrade for the staggered Kenilworth Street, Derby Street intersection, nor have they addressed substandard median strip that residents daily rely on. This median strip is the vital access point to Maylands Primary School next to Gibney Reserve, a multi-use community sporting and recreating reserve for Maylands. It also sits directly on the primary movement corridor linking the neighborhood to the wetlands and riverside gardens. The intersection was included on the City of Bayswater Safe Routes to School implementation plan in 2022-23, yet no action has followed. The development proposal exposes systematic failure. It sits directly across established pedestrian and cyclist movement lines that neither Main Roads or the city has protected nor planned for.
Andrew, that's 3 minutes.
I'm almost there. Because of this gap, residents were forced to commission and pay for an independent peer review of the traffic impact assessment for the fuel station, which was submitted to the city during the public consultation process. The review confirmed that the community has been what the community has been saying for years. The movement network is unsafe, unplanned, and inconsistent with the planning framework. In closing, I respectfully request that the panel refuse the fuel station application due to unresolved safety and movement issues, and note that the City of Bayswater and Main Roads WA must work together to provide safe, direct pedestrian and bike access for children and families traveling to Maylands Primary School, Kibney Reserve, the Wetlands and Riverside Gardens. Thank you.
Thank you. Other questions of Sandra?
Not for me.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Sandra. Daniel West.
Good afternoon, panel members and councillors. My name is Dan West, and I'd like to speak against the proposal on 3 main grounds. Firstly, community opposition to the proposal. Secondly, that the development is not in keeping with the surrounding character of the location and does not provide a community benefit. And thirdly, the safety considerations or negative impact from the proposal. So if I talk to community opposition in the first instance, the community is opposed to this development, I would say unanimously. And we're not talking about community activists here kind of trying to drum up support or opposition. This is people that have lived in the area for an extended period of time, wanting to go about their lives and to be able to maintain those lives in a healthy and safe way, and are really concerned about the negative impact of this proposal. And that's been evidenced by the number of people that have, I think, stood up and voiced their concern and opposition to this proposal. The second piece is in regards to it not being consistent with or supporting the surrounding character. You're talking about a historical settlement area, a lot of historic and character buildings. There is mixed development in there, that's noted, but you're talking about a big, bulky development, significant light impact, significant built form impact. It's not going to have any positive impact to the community. There is already a significant number of fuel stations within the immediate radius, so it's not providing a net benefit there. You've already got a town centre in Maylands, either 500 or 600 metres away, which already provides the community with some of the, I guess, residential or type of hospitality aspects that are proposed through the development. So there's no net community impact or benefit from this proposal. The third piece that I want to talk to is the safety impacts. And it's already been mentioned around the Guildford Road impacts, but in particular, I want to talk about the impact on Kenilworth Street. So the swept path proposals in the traffic impact assessment very clearly show the tanker going onto the wrong side of the street to be able to access Kenilworth and access the service station development there. I actually can't see any way with the layout of those roads and the angle that Kenilworth Street lines up with Guildford Road that the tanker could ever safely access Kenilworth Street from that direction and access the fuel station from there. So for me, that kind of goes, okay, well, the tank is likely to come up Kenilworth Street as a workaround. Now, for me, that would appear to be an absolutely preposterous outcome, that you would have fuel tankers travelling up residential streets where our children are playing on those streets, where the street has already issues with sight lines. For me, having that kind of outcome would be absolutely abhorrent. And a significant concern.
It's 3 minutes. 3 minutes, Daniel.
It goes quickly. Let me wrap up right there. Thank you. Look, for me, the cumulative impact of these factors is a planning outcome that is not only inconsistent with the intent of the zoning and the relevant planning instruments, but also fails to uphold the principles of orderly and proper planning expected within the City of Bayswater. And I respectfully request that the application is refused.
Thank you, Daniel. Questions of Daniel?
None for me.
From you? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. We'll move now to Nick Hidding. Nick Hidding is the applicant. Nick, over to you, 3 minutes.
Thank you, presiding member, and good afternoon, everybody. My name is Nick Hitting from Hitting Urban Planning, acting for OTR 337 Proprietary Limited. The proposed development involves a new service station, convenience store, car wash, and a drive-through coffee outlet. Subject land is zoned service station in the City of Bayswater Local Planning Scheme number 24, which is the designated zone for a service station use. The service station is a P use, which is a permitted use. It's the only zone in the City of Bayswater scheme in which a service station is a permitted use. Notwithstanding the City's advice that draft LPS 25 proposes to rezone the land, this draft scheme is draft form only and hasn't been advertised yet, and it's therefore not a seriously entertained planning proposal. Since the DAP resolved to defer decision last year, we submitted a range of amended material, and that's been assessed, it's been put out for public advertising and has been referred to Main Roads. As a result of these processes, a number of further issues have been raised, which as the applicant, we would like the opportunity to address. The applicant also met with Main Roads and the City on the 4th of March. As a result of the issues discussed, we indicated that a site redesign would be undertaken to address some site planning and access matters that Main Roads and the City have concern with. And I've submitted an amended plan and appended it to my submission. This hasn't been submitted in a formal way, it's just been appended to my DAP submission. But this demonstrates that we are taking the matter seriously and would like the opportunity from here to formally resubmit that design with a range of additional information to continue the process and have it reassessed. The main change in the plan is utilising the entire land for the development, whereas before we had built in a vacant piece of land on the northern side. Now we've proposed a change to utilise the entire site, providing more space for movement of vehicles and bringing development closer to the corner, as was a request from the design review panel. For these reasons, we'd respectfully seek the panel to further defer determination of this application to allow us the time to resubmit based on the redesign and arrange all amended technical reports to address these issues. Deferring a decision would be preferable to a refusal, obviously. Otherwise, we'd have to undertake this process through a state administrative tribunal process, which is not the preferred outcome. The amended site planning layout will address internal traffic movements, fuel tanker movements, and address the design review panel comments, provide better opportunity for landscaping and tree planting, and provide a safer environment for pedestrians, allowing direct entry to the convenience store from the front corner. This will also respond to some of the issues raised by the City in terms of interface with the public realm, activating and providing good amenity. We place this into the panel's hands and we'd ask respectfully for the panel's deferral. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions of the presenter?
No, nothing from me.
Either.
Nick, the issues haven't changed right through this process. Why has it taken so long to, I suppose, respond or try and respond to those issues?
Yeah, thank you for the question. After the panel deferred the application last time, we were requested to submit a whole range of new information, emissions reports and operational management plans and things like that. And we submitted that in the tail end of last year. And then obviously in the new year, the City undertook their assessment through January. And in February, it went out for public advertising and Main Roads referral. And then following that, you get responses from Main Roads. They've taken a different stance. They've moved the goalposts, so to speak. We requested a meeting with Main Roads. That takes a couple of weeks to obtain. And we met with them on the 4th of March, where, those issues were discussed further. And then at that time we offered, okay, we'll look at doing a redesign to try and ameliorate those issues, principally internal traffic movements and the fuel tanker enter and exit, and also discussing the status of Main Roads plans to upgrade the intersection. So a lot of that takes time, obtaining the meeting, doing the meeting, getting the minutes from those meetings, requesting further information from Main Roads, that information coming back and feeding into our system. So It does take time, admittedly, but we are taking the matters seriously and doing what we can to address the matters at hand.
Do you appreciate the issues raised by the community?
Certainly do. It's not uncommon to receive these types of concerns from the community. They're not unexpected. I mean, some of the matters that have been raised are peripheral issues, and I'm not saying all of them are, but certainly ones like cycle networks and crossings over Guildford Road. I think those matters are not matters for the applicant to solve. It's a broader issue that the city as well as Main Roads have to review and come up with their plans as well. So we're feeding into what Main Roads is doing in terms of their planned upgrades. We're speaking to them about how to get access in and out of our properties. You know, looking at fuel tankers, for instance. I mean, a standard 19-metre vehicle is an as-of-right vehicle. It should be able to access any intersection and go down any street. That's what an as-of-right vehicle is. So designing that intersection, Main Roads, you know, that's going to have to be designed to allow for an as-of-right vehicle in any event. Our proposal was actually to do a smaller tanker, a 16.9-metre vehicle, which was resisted by Main Roads. They wanted us to keep utilising the 19-metre vehicle. And as this panel knows, there is the ability to use a different vehicle if we're putting that forward. That can be conditioned, but we can work with Main Roads in getting that outcome. Certainly appreciate other issues that can potentially flow on from a development of this nature. Traffic flow and traffic generation obviously is a big item for a service station. We are looking at that. We are done the assessment. The TIA understands it's been peer reviewed. We haven't had a chance fully to review that and provide further responses, but with the amended plan that I've submitted to MIDAP submission, a number of technical reports are also being reworked to respond to that change. And any issue that's been raised in that peer review will be addressed in the revised TIA. Things like the Meltham train station precinct, I think that's, you know, sort of 500-600 metres away from this, probably a little bit separate from that. You know, comments to do with things changing in this area, urban infill, we understand that this is a specific service station zone currently, and we've been working on this for a couple of years, as you know. This is where the service station development is supposed to go. It's still got service station infrastructure on the land. At the moment, it's not possible to do much else on the property with a service station zone. It's certainly not possible to do residential development. So this is what the framework that we're dealing with. So, but can certainly appreciate the community commentary that's been received.
Regardless of what happens today, or when you submit, if you submit further plans, is a 24/7 service station the only option that you would be looking at?
Well, that's our client's development proposal. I've not seen one service station development in my time, and I've done many of them, been limited in their trading hours. In fact, SAT has commented on that particular issue, suggesting that restricted hours of operation is really tantamount to a refusal. If you can't trade 24/7 for these types of developments, it's just not going to work.
Okay, thank you. Further questions from panel? Yes, Member Lafandi.
Thank you, Nick. There's been a lot of discussion in the report, in the submissions, about the traffic, and that is obviously a very key component in relation to this matter. There's also been a lot of discussion, including the material that's been provided through the submitters, on the details of the TIA. So my question goes to the assumptions and inputs to the TIA, and it really goes to how that will be formulated in terms of there's an URBI report, there's obviously city input, there's obviously Main Roads input, and there's been some criticism in the documents that we've received about the inputs of the TIA presented as part of the applicant's bundle. Can you make comment on, in the event that this is deferred, can you make comments on what actually does happen for the inputs or on your client's perspective to ensure that they are agreed upon in terms of city main roads yourselves? Because that seems to be a very key issue today, that there's dispute around the inputs that therefore result in the material we have in front of us. Can you talk about those inputs, please? Or what you see as moving forward should this matter go through a deferral?
Yes, thank you for the question. With the peer review, we only found out about it obviously in the DAP submissions. The city hadn't advised us that there'd been a peer review. The city hasn't certainly advised us that the TIA is deficient by any means, nor has Main Roads. So the first that we learned about it was a couple of days ago when we saw it on the DAP website. What we will do in the reworking of the TIA is respond to the key matters that have been raised. And I spoke to our traffic consultant last night when reviewing this. There's some disagreement about some of the content in the peer review, and I expect that when the peer review comes across the table, there's always a difference of opinion, perhaps. Look, the inputs have been assessed and put forward. This traffic consultant has had first-hand physical surveys of existing service station sites. Is getting that data directly from operational service stations in Western Australia, as opposed to assessing inputs from standard technical data reporting sites. Sometimes it gets generated from the United States. Sometimes it's a more national input number. So what our client and our traffic consultant has done is utilised specific survey data, surveyed at specific sites across Western Australia. But like I said, what we'll do in the reworking of the TIA is actually discuss those items that have been raised in the peer review. We'll discuss that with the city as well to see whether they agree and make sure that that's comprehensively documented.
So could I just clarify for me, are you saying that the intent, should this move to forward, would be to discuss and reach some form of agreement about the terms or the inputs assumptions to the TIA? Is that what you were alluding to, or did I misunderstand what you referenced just then?
Look, we will talk to the city about what the peer review has been put forward as, and we will see whether the city agrees with some of that, and if they require that to be documented in the amended TIA.
Thank you. And you talked about tanker size, so a 16.9 metre sort versus a 19 metre standard. And I'd be interested in your comments a little bit further about that. You talked about the as of right movement of a 19 metre vehicle into Kellingworth, so I note that is the lay of the land. But I suppose my interest in this question is the context of a as of right vehicle into any particular street is somewhat different than the site for which it relates to and the configuration, the limitations on that site. So could you provide further comment? You talked about it almost as of right because it can get into Kellingworth, therefore it's as of right on the manoeuvring that you've shown to the subject site. And I really want to separate the two. Subject site has its own limitations, and movement into the street might be actually quite different, Kellingworth, than actually the sort of circular movement to get into the site. Can you speak about that? Because as I say, for me, I'm not sure that one drives or can be concluded that access into Kellingworth Street is as of right access in that same configuration to the subject site.
Look, certainly designing the subject land is certainly part of it, and it's our traffic consultant's role to make sure that the sweep paths work and comply with both the city and main road requirements in terms of entering and exiting. Exiting back onto Guildford Road has been discussed with main roads. They don't like the movement of being not lane correct, things like that. Look, there's a whole stack of discussion that we had with main roads in the city about that, and the additional plan for main roads to upgrade the intersection. So the upgrade of the intersection also needs to comply with the Austroads requirements in terms of allowing as of right vehicles to enter and exit where appropriate. And the next thing obviously is how to get into our subject land. And what I've done with our amended plan appended to my MIDAP submission is we're looking to expand development sites so that those movements are easier for those types of vehicles. Noting, of course, that they're only required maybe a couple of times per week for dropping fuel, and they're not a sort of a daily occurrence or even multiple trips per day. It's sort of 2 trips a week.
Further questions?
Yes, I have further 2 questions. I'm going to have this confirmed by the officers as well. Based on the plan that you have provided us in your alternate design, are you saying that that whole of that plan is within the current service station zone? I'm looking at the plan that you've presented only a couple of days ago, which appears to be, according to the documentation that we have, the whole site falls within the service station current zone.
Yes, it does. I believe, yes.
Thank you. And my last question is, you've requested us to consider a deferral. You've given a number of comments in relation to that. I'm interested in your comment on overall time. You've talked about a 30-day period for you to do some plans, but there's a variety of other things that would occur. What sort of timeframe are you requesting from us should the members consider deferral is a reasonable overall timeframe?
Yes, it's difficult to anticipate how far we need to go. Obviously, the last deferral was 180 days, and it appears not long enough. So look, we have requested 6 weeks to produce an amended application, and it pretty much is a full new application because of its redesign. And we'll have to get all our technical consultants to do their reports. And I've outlined from there what the city might need to do in terms of their processes. So I'd be interested in the city's view on what timeframe they need to do their assessment, re-referral to main roads, going through a design review panel process and further advertising. But as a minimum, we'd need the 6 weeks to produce the amended application.
Those are my
Questions?
Not for me.
Sorry, Nick, it would appear that the commercial aspirations for the site have changed along the way as well. You started with a commercial component at the back that was sort of just an office, and then that disappeared and was left blank. And I think the nature of the drive-through changed in floor space, the number of pumps. The whole thing is it's shifting C. Any comment on that? And is this going to be sort of a continued path that we keep looking at a different commercial operation, notwithstanding the use is permitted? I understand that. I'm just talking about the nature, scale, extent, and even other uses on the site seem to change every time we look at a plan. Is this going to continue, or do you have a comment on that?
Yeah, thanks for the question. Originally we built in that sort of future zone between the service station and the residential area to the north. That was put forward by our clients. So look, we don't need the entire land holding to do what we're going to do, and we might be able to build in a bit of a buffer to that residential area. We didn't sort of specify what use was going to go there. We sort of a future commercial opportunity, maybe an office with a front car park. Through the deliberations with the city, it was requested that just be simply removed as being a bit of an unknown, just take it off, show it green as a future landscape or whatever. And again, through the resubmitted application late last year and through the discussion with Main Roads, they sort of relaxed the site a bit, opened it up a bit, try and get some freer movements of vehicles and tankers. And so now we're at the point where we're looking at redesigning the site, utilising the entire land holding for this purpose. We certainly, the main uses that our client is obviously going for is the service station convenience store and the car wash and the drive-through coffee. And, you know, that configuration is where we're at the moment. Who knows how it transpires through the design review panel process as well.
And look, it's a bit of a follow-on to what the presiding member asked. Given that you in your own words just said this is pretty much a fresh application and require all of the reports to be reviewed and prepared, and presumably more advertising and everything else, what's the advantage in a deferral over you going through a SAT or a fresh application process at this stage?
Look, I'd like to keep the current application on foot. I think for history purposes and just to keep things going, you know, going through the tribunal process, I don't want to do that at all. I don't think that is probably a beneficial outcome, because it would come back to, if it would go to a reconsideration, it'd go through resubmitting at that reconsideration point anyway, resubmitting your final application, getting assessed, getting it referred to main roads. Let's just skip that SAP process altogether and let's just do it now. So that's my comment on that. Yeah. And look, I don't want to withdraw and relodge either. I think it's better for the current application to stay on foot.
One further question from me. It relates to that piece of land that was vacant adjacent or next to the residential. The city talks about transitioning to the residential area, and I'm going to ask the city about that as well, because I don't think the service station zone talks about transitioning. Would you better take that into consideration in the future scheme, whatever that is?
Look, and that was the reason we looked at, sort of,
but it had
piece of land to the side, and come back to it later. We could have rezoned it. We could have looked at something else. But we've been asked to look at the entire site for this development so that it relaxes some of the issues that have been put forward. So, look, it's a service station zone all the way to the boundary. So there's nothing more that you can do with it really anyway at this point.
But in terms of how you might develop that, it could incorporate something that acts as a bit of a transition.
No, that's right, and that's why we did that at the beginning, is to build in that buffer for some other use that's not a service station. Could have been an office, which is just 9 to 5 or whatever it might be. It was sort of left as an unknown. We'll revisit it once the approval was granted for the main development, get subdivided off, rezone it, and get it developed in some other way. But with the resubmitted or the amended plan that I've submitted to my DAP presentation, that sort of falls away now.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions of Nick?
Not for me.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks, Nick.
Thank you.
Move to the officers now. There's no need for a presentation as such, as we've read all the material. Is there any comment you want to make, though, in relation to the comments that have been made by community members or comments made by the applicant?
Yeah, through the chair, we'll add a few comments. We won't give a presentation of sorts. But I suppose in surmising or submissions made by deputies, it is acknowledged that there are significant concerns amongst the community. Notably, traffic would be the primary concern, and availability of land uses surrounding residential property forms as a second point. I do want to make some comments from the city's perspective that it is acknowledged that, yes, the service station zone, as it is currently under Town Plan Scheme number 24, it's not a model zone. Hence, when the draft local planning scheme 25 essentially garners a bit more weight, it would likely very transition to a local centre zone, which is model. And in that, there are some, as outlined in the Responsible Authority report, these uses wouldn't be compatible in that zone. But we do need to recognise that the local planning strategy is approved, and it does recognise that this is on an urban corridor. And with that comes different essential uses versus what's currently there on site. I want to make a comment just regarding the applicant's request for a deferral. If we wind back 180 days back in October, we understood the reasons for deferral then was largely due to insufficient information being provided. We think a deferral is inappropriate because the information has been provided, it has been considered, it's gone through the planning process, and the recommendations for refusal is based on all the information that's present. With that, we're happy to answer and respond to any questions that the members may have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Questions from panel members? Yes, Member Lafandi.
Could you speak a little bit further about the transitioning to a local centre? I'm specifically looking for a planning response in the context of where are you at this present stage in relation to the planning framework changes, and what is the current legal status in relation to whether it's imminent and certain, due regard, from a planning perspective? The report appears to me that it's not either of those. Could you clarify exactly what the subject site's current zoning and current framework status is?
Thank you. Yeah, through the chair. So currently the draft planning scheme is with the Department of Planning, Lands and Heritage for review prior to assessment or advertising, I should say. So at the time the RER was prepared, it's still in the same stage as it is now. But it has been approved by Council on the 9th of December last year as the draft scheme with seeking consent to advertise. It's neither imminent nor is it seriously considered, but we would say that there is some regard, minimal regard, would have to be given to it, given that it is in draft status. We also anticipate, based on Planning, Lands and Heritage's timeline, it's likely that we may start an early consultation piece for draft LPS 25 later this year. And that's something probably that needs to be taken into consideration if, in fact, the request for a deferral was considered. I had mentioned it before, but the city would need at least 6 months, as we had previously, for 180 days. That may also affect how, and at that point, the advice given on LPS 25 today may change later this year.
And the LPS 25, draft LPS 25 that's with WAPC, can you please clarify what you say the current draft says about the scheme, the zoning on this site? Is it going, are you saying it's going to local centre? What I'm trying to get at is clearly articulating what is the current service station zoning going to look like under the proposed or the draft LPS 25 that's with the department. Your report refers to a number of comments in that space.
Thank you. Through the chair. So the service station zone is not a model zone. Any of the commercial-based zones under old planning schemes that aren't model, in consultation with the department, we've been told that they'll likely adopt a centre-based zoning. So there's a hierarchy, whether it goes from local centre, neighbourhood centre, and climbs up to the higher strategic centres. It has to be in a model zone for the new scheme and likely one of those four. Given the size of the lot itself, other zones as we have like business zones and office zones, they would also transition to a local centre. So it's very likely that this would be the case. In early talks with the department and workshopping, they haven't flagged that our approach to transition into local centres for these non-model commercial zones to be a problem. So we feel that there's probably some more certainty towards that zone becoming a reality in the new draft, in the new local planning scheme, should it be adopted.
In the context of this site, I know the site has been in its current form for very many years now. Can you speak about what has happened in the intervening period? I suppose what I'm really interested in is essentially the current zoning has sat there for a very long time, despite changes that might have occurred in the surrounding area, but we don't have any evidence that there's been action taken essentially years ago to make a change to the zoning. So I suppose I'm interested in terms of the action that the city has been taking in the context of, again, the site's zoning.
Thank you. Through the chair, there are various sites across the city of Bayswater that may have a zone that may be inconsistent with either the metropolitan region scheme or with the new model scheme text. To acknowledge our scheme is old. It was gazetted back in 2004. But with that, the steps that we've taken is we do have a local planning strategy that's been adopted. It's been approved. That's approved by the Planning Commission. We now have a draft local planning scheme that is model and it is approved by council. In consultation with the department, we're looking to essentially change those non-model zones and contemporise the scheme under the new standards. So that's the approach that we've taken. But it is acknowledged that there are various sites across the city for numerous years that may have had these inconsistencies, if you like. But that's how we're trying to address it through changing framework to contemporise it today.
Sorry, further question. Can you speak to, we've had in our submissions a number of concerns raised, and a number of those concerns speak to pedestrian movement across the street, both Kellenworth and Guildford Road, public realm activity that is separate from the development. Can you speak to those considerations? And it appears that some of those in the RA we have before us are attached to the development in a way that potentially implies that they are responsible. Can you speak to the separation, the responsibility of development of this nature versus works in the street? So things like changes within the road network, Guildford Road in particular, that is, the extent to which the applicant has control over the current arrangement within the street, or even pedestrian movement within the street.
Thank you, through the chair. It is the responsibility of the applicant to at least work with the verge areas adjacent to the development site to ensure that pedestrian movement conflict is not impacted. I would refer to our manager of transport buildings, our engineering team, just to talk a little bit more broadly about the strategic implications of pedestrian movement, as noted by one of the deputies.
Thank you, through the chair. So, as Adrian has alluded to, so the applicant is responsible to address any pedestrian activity related to the development application itself, in terms of whether it's across the verge or getting pedestrians across Guildford Road itself, or the side roads for that matter. However, the city is aware of the challenges around pedestrian movement along Guildford Road, and we have been actively working with Main Roads in regards to implementing a there is currently approval from Main Roads to provide a signalised pedestrian facility along that section of Guildford Road. So we have about a 550 metre stretch where we can provide such a facility. There has been several designs and concepts prepared. However, no dedicated location yet picked, but that will be subject to going out to the community consultation.
Those are my questions at this juncture.
Are you suggesting that this development, if it went ahead, would give rise to providing that facility?
No, it wouldn't be the responsibility of the developer or specifically for the development to provide that facility. That is just a generic requirement that the city has been working on for a number of years now.
Thank you. All right. Further questions? Member Howe.
Adrian, given that there's no real disagreement that use is permitted under the current scheme, you contend that you're moving towards a different solution as time permits to move away from the current planning scheme. But at the moment, the issue at the moment. Now, as recent as the 4th of March, you attended meetings with Main Roads and Nick Hitting to try and resolve issues around the proposal as it was. So in a sense, you're okay with the use, but the issues were getting tangled and they were getting harder and harder to resolve. Is that my assessment of this? Because your sort of conclusion in recommending refusal is that this is not an appropriate place for a service station. So yet the zoning permits it, but what you're saying is that the issues are insurmountable and therefore you can't approve this as proposed. Yet, as recent as yet, the last 24 hours, 48 hours, we received a plan saying that shows some light at the end of the tunnel that they may be resolved. Are you still of the view that there is no appropriate form of service station that can be permitted here by its nature of its use as opposed to the type of use? Is that what I'm trying to understand here as your reason for refusal?
Thank you, through the chair. And not necessarily, where the assessment's concluded that the cumulative impacts behind a 24-hour facility, car wash, drive-through outlet, the traffic impacts that come about, and essentially everything contained on the site is incompatible. That's really the primary concern of the city. It is acknowledged they are permitted uses. So yes, it can be under the current framework, it could be contemplated in such a way that, yes, they could receive approval if it's done correctly. But based on the way the operations are, the cumulative impact, I suppose the technical documentation hasn't demonstrated this is actually appropriate. The city's reasons for refusal outside of the permissibility is to do with incompatibility and overall operations of the site.
So by inference, a deferral wouldn't achieve any different outcome.
That's correct. Thank you.
Sorry, can I just ask that? How could you make that statement without seeing an alternate plan? Sorry, that's sort of.
Yeah, through the chair. So we believe the applicants had 800 days to demonstrate to the city how this proposal could work. And from when the application was first submitted in October 2023 to now is effectively the same proposal, minus the future commercial building at the rear. So we haven't seen really a true legitimate attempt to redesign the site with addressing the concerns for main roads previously made in 2024 and from March, and the most recent meeting that we've had now. So for us, it goes beyond that I don't think a deferral would satisfy that the core issues that they need. The applicant should go back to the drawing board from the very beginning and really reconsider how this whole site should be reconfigured. To Member Howe's point, these are permitted uses, and so it can be approved and can be contemplated under the city's planning scheme. But there hasn't been enough, there hasn't been enough to demonstrate that this proposal is acceptable on a multitude of levels as outlined in the RAR.
Okay, thank you. Further questions of the officers?
Not for me.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, thank you to the officers for that. We'll move to the item now. Have a responsible authority report with a recommendation for refusal and a number of reasons. Is there a mover for the recommendation for refusal? Councillors. Councillor Michelle Sutherland, are you? Nothing?
Yes. Yes. Sorry.
Sorry, are you moving it? No.
No.
No. Okay. All right. No mover for that recommendation for refusal. I'll seek an alternate recommendation.
Sorry, was that a removal, recommendation for refusal?
Yes.
Yes, I'll move that.
All right.
I think, yeah.
Certain.
All right. Are you, Councillor Sutherland, are you sure that's what you're doing?
We're refusing the applicant.
Your support, you are moving the responsible authority recommendation for refusal with the reasons as published. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I'll seek a seconder for that. Is there a seconder for that? That's Councillor Kono. Thank you.
Yeah. No. Not Keanu.
I'll get it before the end of the meeting. Okay, Councillor Sutherland, you can speak on that motion as moved.
No, I think everything's sort of been reported quite succinctly by the deputations.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Leocono.
I agree. I think everything's been said by the deputies and the officers, in my opinion.
Thank you. Other speakers? Yes, Member Lafont.
Thank you. I don't support the refusal. There's been a lot said about this proposal in both the meeting today, the submissions, as well as the RAR. From my perspective, I suppose I'll start with a couple of matters. The first is that the land use, as it currently stands, is a permitted use. We heard clearly from the city today about the iterative changes to the plans. My view of the plan that admittedly was only presented to us 2 days ago as an alternate looks a reasonably substantial change. So I'm not sure that, for me, I agree with the comment that that would automatically result in the same assessment and outcome does not, in the absence of really going through that, I don't agree with it. My other point, I suppose, is the disagreement around assumptions and traffic modelling, and I think that for me needs to be some clarity in that context. The second and the next couple of points for me in terms of not supporting a refusal is that there's a variety of issues that have been raised in the submissions today and through the RA that are amenity issues that exist in that area because of what's currently in the area, and that is the road. And I would like to be clear about the extent to which this development is the impact of this development in relation to those activities. The final consideration for me is the read I have for this RA is that there's a number of public realm issues associated with the development that I see as separate from and need to be separated out in the conversation from the consideration for me. And those amenity impacts and those public realm impacts are significant. The third is that this discussion around the traffic and the movement of the vehicle, be it a 16.9 metre or 19 metre, needs to be clarified. And from my perspective, that needs to relate to the development of the site, not the operator of the site. So in that, the main roads have talked about a 19 metre truck, a 19 metre tankle being appropriate for the length, for the road system, but the design would need to reflect that. From my perspective, there is sufficient information that I have received in the package, in hearing to everybody, that raises for me some questions about the proposal. And as we have been presented a potential change, from my perspective, I think it is reasonable to understand what that actually looked like. It's contained wholly on the service station site. That is a legitimate zone for that site. It is a permitted use, and I would be more comfortable being clearly able to say whether or not proposal for a service station is or isn't appropriate with the design and the alternative. So I don't support refusal, I do support a deferral, and if it goes there, I'll speak to that later.
Other speakers? Member Howe.
Following on from my presiding current members, I'm of the view that this has not been an ideal process for either council or the proponent. I think a lot has been discovered along the way by both parties about how to manage what is a reasonably complex application, and no doubt unpopular by the nature of its current planning. And I think that there is an opportunity to resolve certainly all the technical issues now that the goalposts seem to have stopped shifting with main roads as of the last meeting, and align the traffic assessments and judgments around those assumptions. And I think that there's an opportunity to provide something that does add community benefit to the wider community. This is on a significant road that unfortunately might not mitigate every last community concern. But the nature of that zone hasn't changed for some 20 odd years. And so this was always a prospect and is a current prospect to be dealt with by us. I hope that the proponent can provide the information that's required in order for everyone to feel satisfied that those requirements and standards, and particularly those around safety and community and amenity, can be met in a reasonable manner. And so therefore I would be seeking a deferral to this rather than a refusal.
Thank you. There's a few issues here. Well, I think, and I acknowledge the community comments, and I appreciate concerns they've got. The difficulty we've got is we have this site which has a permitted use on it. Now, permitted use, or P use, is an as of right use. So a service station can go there. The difficulty is, or the measure of whether it should get approved, is how it's done, what impact it might have on the community. And so that comes down to things like traffic we've been discussing, and other amenity impacts on the community as a result of the proposal, not the use itself, but how the use is put on site. And in terms of community concerns, they've raised many good points, but it's not a numbers game. It isn't 500 community against, 1 for, therefore it's against. It comes down to the issues raised by the community and the planning content or the planning arguments put forward. And I suppose I have some concerns about a deferral in that we've been down this path before. We get to the 11th hour, there's another movement. And so if I am to support a deferral, and I can't get a commitment anyway, but I would hope that the applicant would appreciate this is really the last time that we can seriously look at this thing. I think, and I don't want to judge what I've seen in terms of the revised plan that's come in yesterday, because at the end of the day, I may still not support it. It may still not meet the tests that we need to apply to this thing. But I think it's reasonable to give it a chance to see if there is something that can be done, knowing that it is a permitted use on the site. We need to get the best result for the community and the location in terms of traffic and other things. I think there are still some issues that will be around 24/7 operation. I don't think we can help that, but it is one of those aspects that occurs with the modern day service station. So I'm prepared to support a deferral and not a straight out refusal at this stage. Back to the mover, Councillor Sutherland, you're the mover. Did you want to wind up the debate on that?
No, look, I see when you talk about the planning aspect, it has been zoned for that area, for that use, but I just think time's moved on, and I do think it's going to be very, not user friendly for traffic. So that's why I've said no to this. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll put the motion to refuse. All those in favour of refusal?
Yes.
Yes, and against? That's lost. 2-3. So I want to see if there's an alternate motion now. An alternate motion for a deferral.
Yes, I would like to move a deferral motion.
Member Lafandi.
And I'm moving it using some of the language that was provided through the applicant. And for the minute taker and for panel members, I will read out what I am proposing. That the proposal be deferred for a period of up to 180 days, being on or before. And I put down 30th September, but I don't know if that is actually 180 days or 176 days. And maybe the admin staff can correct that for me. And 2026. Further information on the following. Consideration of the amended site plan. So the issues will include, so it'd be amended site plan, and I'm not limiting it to just this document we have here, because I'm not forming a view on the document that's attached, but amended site plan, including the internal traffic arrangements, fuel tanker movements and justification on fuel tanker size relative to the land use being sought, not just the operator. Address the design review comments. Address the design review panel comments by placing building at the corner, providing an enhanced urban design with improved street interface and responding better to context and character of the area. by reference to the proposed land use. And what I'm trying to get at is the context of the interface also needs to look at the land use.
Let's just get the wording down if we can.
I'm using point.
Put it in there.
Yes, point 3. To better, I'm using the same language as point 4, same language as point 5, which is better opportunity for landscaping and tree planting. And then 5 is provide a safer environment for pedestrians, allowing direct entry to the convenience store from the front corner. 6 is responding to the city raised issues with interface in the public realm. And 7 is the interface and amenity impacts on the adjoining residential site. So essentially the transition, the design transition, or the interface with the adjoining residential sites. So I've added a 7th in there and slightly reworded some of those.
To
27th of September 2026.
27th of September, thank you.
Should be a Sunday, so
25th of September.
All right, that's moved by Member Lafandi. Is there a seconder for that? Member Howe, thank you. Member Lafandi. Speak to it.
My comments, sorry, thank you. My comments are, I suppose, a repeat of some of the comments that I've indicated. The land use is permitted and the site is currently zoned that way. The matters that are shown as part of a potential alternate are matters that I would like to understand before making a final decision. The commentary around some of the language in these reasons are to pick up elements that relate to land use and not necessarily operator, particularly around vehicle movement. Obviously, from a planning perspective, any determination that made runs with the land, and that's why I've specifically referenced a 19-metre standard vehicle, and there would need to be quite substantial information about variation from that and rationale. As well as there needs to be some clear information relating to the interface with the adjoining residential uses, how that transitions there, and what ultimately are the ways that the proposal seeks to manage those amenity impacts. So I haven't necessarily said it in all those words, but I suspect that the language used will and should clearly enable the applicant to respond to those concerns. So that's my written.
Can I suggest an additional one, which is probably in the process anyway, but another point is further opportunity for community consultation.
Yes, I'm comfortable with that.
Is the seconder happy with that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. To you, Member Howe?
Nothing further to add.
Nothing further to add. Are there the other member councillors, do you wish to speak to the deferral motion?
No, thank you.
Who was that? Is that?
No, I don't.
All right, thank you. And I'm happy to support the deferral. I just want to make it clear that this does not mean there's an approval necessarily at the end of the line there. There's an opportunity for the applicant to properly address the issues that have been raised. And we'll look at this when it comes back together with the officers' comments on that. So back to you, Member Lafandi, to wind up the debate.
No comments.
I'll put the motion to defer. All in favour? Against?
No.
Thank you. That's carried 3-2. That ends that item. I will the meeting off. There's no Form 2 DAP applications, no Section 31 reconsideration in terms of other business. SAP applications are available on DAP website, and the meeting is closed at 2:23. Thank you everyone for attending. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, staff.
Thank you. Sorry you couldn't see me.
Thank you, community members, and thank you to our